So I'm super excited to introduce our moderator, Nicole Adams. She is the customer success manager here at Bevy, and she also has some nonprofit experience. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Nicole.
All right. Thank you so much. I am absolutely loving the creativity with these emojis. I'm pretty tempted to spend about 20 minutes digging out my favorite, but I think we have more important things to talk about. So, hey everybody, Nicole Adams here. I'm a customer success manager at Bevy. Before coming to Bevy, I actually worked as a customer of Bevy at the nonprofit called Suit Up. And so I have some background in the space, and what I'm really passionate about is the nonprofit's approach to community building, advocacy, and championship. So we've got some phenomenal experts in the room. I can't wait for y'all to get to know them. So let's start with some intros. Katie, if you want to get us started, and then we can just round robin. Go ahead,
Sure.
Katie.
Thanks, Nicole. My name is Katie Franco. I am currently serving as the Executive Director of Girl Develop It. So our mission is to provide opportunities for women and non-binary individuals to learn software development skills. And we do it through coding opportunities, community, and do a lot of activities to help build confidence and get folks ready for careers. I've been in the nonprofit for 20 years. I've done everything from environmental direct advocacy to working with an international nonprofit, doing development and leadership opportunities. So I've done sort of the gamut and excited to be here. Thanks.
Okay, hi all, this is Ivis. I'm with the Melanoma Research Foundation, Chief of Staff. And our mission at the MRF is to eradicate melanoma by accelerating medical research while educating and advocating for the melanoma community. I've been in the nonprofit space for about 10 years, originally starting in education policy and then moving into the melanoma research space. And happy to be here and happy to get to know everyone. Thank you.
We also have Mary. Mary, if you want to jump in and do an intro, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi there, Mary Whitehill here. I'm not sure why my video is not working. It says that it's on, but I don't see myself. It's nice to see all of you, though. I am the founder and executive director of Mary's List. We are a nonprofit organization working with families who are resettling as refugees in the United States. Mary's List is just 5 years old, and we have been able to support the resettlement of over 700 families across 19 states since our founding in 2016. I did not go to school for this. I previously worked in advertising, and I found I came to this work through meeting one family back in 2016. At the time, I was taking a break from my career, and I was actually planning to go back once my kids were a little older. And obviously, here we are 5 years later. I do not plan on ever going back to advertising. This is certainly my life's work. I get to work with people from all over the world. We're 16 people on staff at Mary's List and hundreds of volunteers. Literally, there are hundreds of people all over the country, even right now, supporting the families that are enrolled in our program. So community is definitely the heart and soul of what we do. And I'm so glad to be able to talk about that with all of you today.
Much. And luckily we got myself as the customer success manager in the room. So I'm pinging everybody in the background to get your camera working. So we'll get that taken care of. But I want to dig into some of the topics we have for our experts today. And the biggest thing that's on my mind when I reflect on my experience working in the nonprofit industry was the impact COVID had on our programming. We were primarily running in-person events, and that switch was certainly a challenge. I'd love to hear from folks on the call. Maybe Ivis, if you want to kick us off, what virtual strategies have worked, what have not? Kind of how's it going just in general with this huge shift?
Yeah, so we obviously had to rely heavily on any virtual aspect to bring the community together, continue to have a shared space and support. So we have this great team of junior staff members who came up with this great initiative in the month of April last year. And that was to have healthy wellness events for every day in April, just about 30 days in April. So we had anything from workouts to cooking and art activities. And it ranged from, anyone in our community could join them, and even our pediatric community as well. And I think that really helped keep us all together and responsive to the community too, because, we were concerned they're immunocompromised. So we wanted to make sure that they had the information that they needed during that time too, to stay healthy and safe. So that was very successful for us. And I think it helped remind people that it's not just about the fundraising part. It's really about who we're here to serve and the mission. And it truly made such an impact and helped, I think, continue connecting us with and strengthening our relationships with our community into this year as well.
Open it up because I know a lot of what I just said really resonated with my experience, where it certainly was a challenge. There was a lot of there was just many different ways we could have approached the shift. So any other strategies that were a hit, or maybe strategies you should warn us all about that were a total miss? Don't go down that road. Katie or Miri, feel free to jump in here.
I can go. I think for us, it was a really interesting time. GDI was sort of going through a transition as it was. Our community was in flux. I was a new executive director and was coming in after a big period of flux and a need to get our organization and our community. And we, our base work is hosting classes and events for women and non-binary adults. So we did our last class in a building in Chicago in downtown, and the day after there was a COVID scare, and we had to call everybody, and we just decided to shut it all down and stop trying. And we did what we thought we don't do virtual. We only teach in person. It's part of our core mission and our work and our programs. And we'll never. And we opened up a Zoom and started hosting classes on Zoom. And what we found was that actually this is what our community needed. And I don't like to say anything positive out of the last 2 years and kind of what we went through, but for us, our community was needing this. Our community was full of caretakers, people who were out of work, their kids were home, and they clicking onto a class and being with people and talking about maybe what I could do next for my career, or realizing I have talent for this, was a huge plus. And at the same time we started to do this, women were leaving the workforce by droves. It was the first round of big layoffs. A lot were women, and those were the industries and the careers. And we had people in our classes who had said, all the engineers in my company didn't get fired, but the product managers and the marketing folks all got laid off. And I'm doing all the same things. I just don't have that engineering certificate, and I'm just going to start taking these classes and get that. It was just this real kind of shift in the mentality. So we are virtual. We've allowed us to have amazing, instructor who lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, teach people all over the world. And these challenges we had of how do we handle childcare for our classes? How do we find space? All these things went away, and we just focused on what are we teaching and how are we engaging? And then, we started off kind of very haphazardly on Zoom, and we moved to Bevy and have built out our entire virtual platform on the Bevy program, which is great for us. So it's been a really interesting shift. I mean, I don't want to go on for 5 hours, but it's been a very interesting sort of it answered a bunch of the questions, and we were so afraid to go there. And the pandemic was you have to, or you're not going to serve people. And I was pretty strongly committed from day one is we're going to serve as many people as we can during this pandemic, and we're going to be that support system. So it's been a really interesting turn for us. I will say one of the takeaways that we did learn is that not everything translates to virtual. So the way that you teach a class in person or have an event, there needs to be a little bit more thought about engagement and tools and all that. But kind of learning is I just took a program and plopped it on Zoom, and that's not exactly the way you need to do it.
There were so many good nuggets in everything you just said. I'm now regretting I didn't put a pen and paper in front of myself, just because the one piece that's really resonating with me is that it actually as much as the challenge and the hardship that certainly came with the past 2 years and is not over, there was also this moment of unblocking and almost unlocking resources that
Yeah.
maybe wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have that real force to have to do, right? It was always an option, but now you had to do it. So question, and maybe I'll throw this one to Miriam or the rest of the folks here, but I want to know, what does leadership look like in your community, right? Katie, you kind of hinted at how, you had this amazing teacher in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is also where my mom's from, so special place in my heart. But would that have been possible if you didn't embrace the virtual? So talk to me, folks, a little bit about how virtual programming has also helped you build championship, build advocacy, and allow for those people to kind of claim that space and do that advocacy work on your behalf.
I definitely want to answer this one, but I'm going to try to reload my screen and get my video working. So if
No
somebody
worries.
go first, and then I'm going to come back and get in there.
No worries. No worries.
I can speak to, I think some of the ways we pivoted was offering programs and education for our patients with experts. So we would have these derms or oncologists who are well known in our space that would provide a specific helpful guidance around how to manage their treatment, their care, but of course, staying safe during times of COVID. So that was really successful. They're able to also be led by others in the community, someone who's going through somebody in their same condition as well. They're maybe newly diagnosed, and it offered a space for them to, just like what we have here, have a chat to continue to connect, form new relationships, and even buddy systems. So it was really nice to have that, and having leaders in the melanoma space to provide that for them.
For us, we have a little bit of a different org structure than other companies that I've worked at in the past. We don't have a hierarchical structure at Mary's List. Our organization is shaped more like a circle. It's more like a wheel, and we work in small groups. A lot of us wear more than one hat, and we are supporting one another in our various roles very collaboratively. And so for us, leadership is really kind of across the board. We are hoping that every single person who works at Mary's List is going to be a leader, whether that is leading their own work group, leading the volunteers that they're collaborating with. We would have, the only reason we've been able to support 700 families in 5 years is because of the very generous contribution of many volunteers. It is not a simple thing to coordinate amongst that many people. And so, having our communication and, events be virtual, it's a way of leveling the playing field, especially for folks who might be home with little kids, who might have various differing accessibility. And it's been really, really cool to see all the ways that people can kind of step into their own using tools like Bevy and Zoom and other platforms that allow us to come together. This Sunday, we have an event coming up. It's called Afghan Friendsgiving. And it is a pickup version of what we used to do in person. Back before 2020, we were meeting, with hundreds of people every month and having these community dinner parties where resettling families would cook meals, and they can earn money by, sharing their culture and showing off their skills. Because, if there's if there's one thing that brings people together, especially people who might not even share the same native language, but it's sitting together at a, delicious home cooked meal. And so, we have evolved that program to kind of work with, where we are at. And so this Sunday we have this pickup Afghan dinner where people are going to be coming and picking up those kits from a space in Hollywood. And then the following Thursday, we are doing a panel with the 3 chefs who are preparing the meal. And we have another chef moderating. And it's kind of, an event that used to be all in 3 hours under one roof is now actually over the course of a week. And it's involving way more people. We have elected officials participating in the online event. We have volunteers. Hopefully we'll have, much more attendance than we would be able to fit if we were all in one room. So it's certainly different, but it has worked for us. It has made it possible for us to maintain that feeling of connection through a very, quickly changing environment. And, what I hope is that, even as we go back to, quote, what the new normal is after all of this, that the ability to jump in and lead will still be there the way that it is right now at this moment. There's in a lot of areas I'm like, I don't necessarily want to completely go back to the way we, did things in, quote, the old world. And then we're, evolving that all the time. We've tested out comedy shows online, musical performances, speakers. We've had kids perform music, all kinds of things. And in the end of the day, I think what is probably the most successful thing that we can do online is to casually get together with people at noon on a Friday and talk about something that is important and easy to understand, and just to see each other like this. I mean, you can't see me, but I can see you, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm so sorry again about my camera, but
No worries.
There's a lot of strength in that.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to do an emoji pulse check on everyone who's in our audience right now. Drop your favorite emoji if any of the things Miri listed you also have tried, and maybe it worked and didn't work. Because I heard stand-up comedy, I heard like virtual engagement, live perform. When I was a program director, I certainly tried the full range. And I love your call out of sometimes it's just about facilitating the space and allowing for conversations just like this to happen. And I know I'm sitting over here in New York, and I was heartbroken, Miri, when you said West Hollywood for your event. I was like, dang, that is nowhere near me in New York City. So you let me know when that'll come to the East Coast. But it's so amazing how it has been such a challenge, but it has unblocked things. But one thing that I personally always like to learn new strategies for is virtual engagement. It's such a buzz phrase. How do you do it? What does it even look like? What works, what doesn't work? Anyone want to jump in here? Because I think you all do it really well in many different ways, and you've probably also experimented a ton with it too. So yeah, what does virtual engagement look like, and how do you sustain it over time?
I'll jump in. I just want to follow up on something Miri said about sort of the accessibility of this world. I don't think we can underestimate that even though limitations clearly that people don't have Wi-Fi or computers in the virtual space, the amount of more people who have been able to touch or engage the programs or show up to something has been huge. I mean, people with disabilities, people who don't have a car, people who work a job. I mean, before the pandemic, our classes used to be, like I said, downtown Chicago at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm a mom of 2. I never would have made that meeting. But by the way, I also walked into a tech organization when I super big newbie. And I think that opportunity has been like, we can't underestimate that. We just did a hackathon and had 86% of the people who participated were brand new, never been to a hackathon. Those women and non-binary folks would not have walked into a meeting hall and intimidated and all this, but from home they could like do it and have fun. So I just think that has been amazing, and just we can't underestimate the accessibility of what we've been up to. But anyway, when you just to your question on engagement, I think it's like, what is engagement, right? Is like the $1 million question, and it means something different to every organization. I mean, for us, consistent events, high quality events, if we're going to put something on, like even if it is that 30-minute like lunch and learn, we try to make it of value so people want to be there. And then we're also working very hard to continue to grow a Slack community to companion with our programs. So there's that constant engagement. It's not just like I have to go to a class and then I wait for the next class, but there's more this chat and this community. We open every class with an icebreaker. We've done a lot of consistent classes that meet in small groups over a period of time to kind of build that network. And then this hackathon we did was this amazing community moment where people were like, oh my God, not only did I learn, but I also helped somebody. And the Slack engagement was through the roof. And these kinds of fun events, whether it is like, a comedy show that 4 people show up on or a huge hackathon, we're finding them that even if the 5 people come, those 5 people had a great time. And that was a win. So yeah, but I mean, I think it's like, the engagement quotient or however judges that and how boards and data look at that is crazy. But I think it's like, you see it when you know it, and you see the people that are coming back and showing up for you.
Yeah, I have to agree with that as well. And honestly, love the accessibility part. I also work on a global initiative, and it's just been amazing to see that now for these annual meetings, we get more participation and we get other people are able to attend. Whereas before, we would have these meetings and everyone would have to travel in from different parts of the world. And that's not always easy for everyone. It was great too, because we have maybe some oncologists who want their admin or new staff member who's joining and learning from them to join as well. And it opens it up for them. Oh, there we go. Mm-hmm. So, it's just, the reach is so much bigger, and the engagement is there as well. We can continue conversations. It doesn't end for us. A lot of people go into these big meetings and conferences, right? And then you're like, okay, what was said? What happened again? Where are we? But it's easier now to continue the conversation and the important work that everyone's doing.
It is so fabulous to see you. This is also such a reality of the virtual work, is as much as it opens up stores, like it is a challenge, and you have to also have that adaptability. So just wanted to name the elephant in the room. Miri, it is so great to see your face now. And we're really happy we got that sorted. One thing that keeps kind of ruminating in my mind with engagement is exactly what you just said. It is, it when you see it, right? I think one thing I wanted to learn from y'all today is when it comes to being in the virtual space, it's expensive. There's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of programming you want to do, right? How have you seen your fundraising, your donor programs change or adapt over the course of the past 2 years, if any? I'd love to hear from folks on the call. What does that look like today?
I can speak to that. We just had a huge milestone. We raised, we hit $1 million raised in 2021. Wow. We've never even come close to that, and we actually hit that milestone about a month ago. So it was before the quote giving season even began, and that was something that I thought was a few years away for us. Last year we raised $499,000 in the entire year. And so to be able to be over $1 million with a month left to go tells us that we are certainly on the right track. Also, we are in the midst of responding to a humanitarian crisis. More than 90% of the families that we serve are coming from Afghanistan. These are folks who have been evacuated. A lot of them had to leave with just their documents. A lot of them had very little notification ahead of time. And, I mean, I've gone on a weekend trip that I plan mentally for weeks ahead of time. I'm trying to imagine to like be moving to another country with my children without any of that kind of logistical planning or even emotional and mental planning. It's hard to imagine. And so, for us, in this most difficult and dire time, there's this line. We are working with folks who have very urgent needs. They have been through very, very difficult, sometimes they have experienced violence and trauma. And so we want to be able to fully explain and express what is happening, what the need is, why the need is there, and what we can do to help, without focusing on and potentially triggering the families who are in our program. And so, one rule of thumb that we have in terms of all communication, because development and fundraising, it's really, how are we communicating? Whether that is communicating with individual people or foundations or major donors or family foundations, there's different buckets of, places that you can, receive funding from. And it's a question of how are we communicating with them? And so for us, the rule of thumb is anything we put out there in the world, whether it's a photo, video, words on paper, we write it intending that the families that we are serving are going to read it and understand it. And as long as we are coming from that place, that the families that we are serving are our intended audience, even when we're talking to donors, it ensures that the words and the communication and the leadership and the education that we're putting out in the world about what is going on for folks who are resettling as refugees will be in the best interest of the families we are serving. And that can be, a fine line that we toe. And you might hear my kids in the background. They're both home from school today with fevers. So it's just a day. So, that is, how we can ensure that our focus is on the families and individuals that we're serving and not the donors. Because, philanthropy is the lifeblood of nonprofit organizations. We can't do any of it without philanthropy, except we also can't speak only to philanthropists, because ultimately we are here to support the families who we enroll in our program. And I think that as fundraisers, that's something that we just need to continuously come back to. And then, tying it back to leadership, everybody that, I'm just going to close my office door while we're talking. Everybody that works at Mary's List is a fundraiser, not by their job title or job description, but when you're doing a thing and you're in the world talking about the things that you're doing, you're automatically one of the people on the front lines sharing what the work is all about. And so, we want to make sure that everybody who works at Mary's List, and by the way, about half of our staff are folks who have graduated from our program. So we have 14 different spoken languages on staff at our organization. We want to make sure that everybody who is interested has the training, the tools, and the ability to learn how to raise money. Whether or not they stay at Mary's List for this year, their entire careers, and go somewhere else, work at another organization, start their own organization or business, the ability to, and the tool set, the skill set of being able to raise money, that is something that will serve someone in their entire career. And I think that's what we can do as leaders as fundraisers for our organizations, is make sure that we aren't siloing those skills off, making sure that everyone can join the trainings, everyone can join the workshops, and everyone, if you raise your hand, you're like, hey, I want to call on some donors, perfect. We are going to give you everything you need to do that in a way that works for you. And it might even be like, oh, you put your kids to sleep and then you send a couple of emails to donors. But like, for me, that's a lot of times what it is. I'm a single parent. That's just what my life is like. It's not like that for everyone. So finding the ways that we can fit it into our lives and build these really important skills that are going to serve people for way longer than they're in this specific job.
I have to call out the very embarrassing thing I did while you're speaking, Miri. I like literally leaned in and was absorbing that. I hope people at home also had that aha moment. One thing that hit me was like, you're creating community, but you're doing it authentically. Like, fundraising won't happen if you're not including all the voices in the room in your messaging, right? And being intentional. And I think what really resonates with me from what you just said was that, like, in order to be successful in building your nonprofit is that you actually have to also be building the community serving it too, and supplying them with skills they need, whether or not they're going to be in that community for a day, a year, 5 years, 10 years, right? You just want to make sure you're coming from a space of authenticity. So I want to throw this question out to everyone here. How do we measure success, right? Like, we've talked about hosting authentic groups and meetups, also marquee events where it's, super engaging. We've talked about how to build that engagement, sustain it, Katie, with your Slack group and that 365 engagement. How do we measure that? Because I think that's the hardest part of all this work is, what's the ROI? How do you figure out what it looks like? I don't know. Anyone could take that. I feel like all of y'all could speak to that very eloquently. So open to whoever wants to grab it first.
I could jump in there just real quick. I mean, I don't think I have all the answers for ROI virtual space. I mean, for us, it's, our goal is to offer quality and amazing accessible trainings for women and non-binary adults. So, are people coming back? We're looking at registration numbers, attendee numbers, but then also, we also have really focused from who our community is. Our community a couple of years ago was a bunch of folks who were organizing local in the community. Now our community is a bunch of the students and the learners. And those are sort of the folks that we're talking to on a regular basis. And what we're doing is we've offered a membership model. So we're focusing, rather than come and pay for a class or do whatever, it's sort of have like an opportunity to be with us all year for one fee. And that's really been driving. So now we're knowing these folks, getting to know them and asking them if they're getting what they need out of our programs on a regular basis. So it's sort of like a tighter universe, but it's a much stronger connection point. And I guess for us, I don't want to put a measure on did more women and non-binary folks get jobs in the tech field, but it's like, we achieving the goals that we set out? Is that our mission? Are we offering the training? Is it the right training for the right time? And that's sort of how we hold ourselves accountable to our community.
I'd say similar as well, tracking to see how successful a webinar session was, or launching educational materials and seeing how often was that requested or downloaded, and what is the feedback. So making sure that our community has a big role in that as well. And then we can track the metrics and the success and just continue to gear everything towards what our mission is and the melanoma patients in the community. I think that has really helped. And also social, we have a lot of awareness prevention campaigns for our cancer community. So it's good to also be able to track at the end of a campaign, how successful was that campaign? How many people did it reach? So that's been really helpful too. And it helps us continue to grow these campaigns and make sure that they're really of value, which is so important too.
Yeah, I love what I'm hearing from both of those points is like, you can't prove the value of the work you're doing without asking the folks you're working for, that you're in service of. Like, they have to have a piece of the pie almost, which that's a terrible phrase, but obviously I'm still in Thanksgiving mode over here. But they have to be a part of the conversation. And so success is not just how many events did you host, but who showed up, who got what they needed, who wants more from that, who wants not just one class, but the full 365, who wants, you know, resources that are popping up on their Instagram feed, right? And are they tapping in there? Now the next question, oh, jump in, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. The two primary metrics that we're using to measure success on the family side is word of mouth referrals. So a family who has participated in our program, how likely are they to refer our program to a friend or family member? That is the ultimate Yelp review in our business. And more than 95% of the families we enroll have heard about us through a friend or family member. And we track that very closely because we want to know, is this something that you would share with a friend? On the other side, we look at donor retention. How likely is it that somebody who gives in 2020 is going to give again in 2021? Ultimately, that is your measure of, you know, beyond an emergency situation, is someone understanding the mission, understanding the long-term purpose and vision, and willing to go from being a one-time kind of emergency response donor to a longevity, maybe even a monthly donor. You know, that's the ticket for us. And when COVID hit in March 2020, you know, we looked at our revenue and our financial statements, and the only donations we got in March 2020 were from people who were subscribed to Give Monthly. And I think that was a huge eye opener for us, because it was like, oh my God, our monthly giving program is the only pandemic proof funding we have, because we weren't doing events anymore. We weren't selling tickets. We weren't like able to, you know, talk to our donors who were in their own family crises and ask them to be giving to us. And it really shined a light on how important it is to encourage people, even if it's $10 a month, $25 a month. Since then, we have really invested in the communication of that as one of the best ways to support Miri's List. And we've grown that considerably, the number of people who are giving. And I think that is, I also want to mention that like the donor retention for a monthly donor is like more than 90%. It's like highly likely that they will continue giving because it's happening automatically. They don't have to think about it and decide every month. They've already decided. And so that's, you know, some of how our approach at kind of understanding where we're at and how we can go forth into the future in a way that's somewhat, you know, mitigating some of the risks that could come up. You know, the chances of another pandemic happening, I mean, we don't know.
There's so many unknowns. And I think from what I'm hearing from it's so cool to me to hear all the different approaches for like showing success. But the common thread I'm hearing throughout is just what is a community member's willingness to extend your community on your behalf? Like if I'm a part of Girl Develop It, what's my willingness to tell my best friend over coffee, like, hey, it's time. You got to get in this community. You have to get involved. This is a good fit. Almost like that network and how willing your community is to help you grow it and help you continue the mission and vision work. I also like the second thread I'm hearing, which is removing decision fatigue, right? The past 2 years have certainly had a lot of decision fatigue. We've all had to make challenging calls, and having that community that has consistently high engagement opportunities, resource, knowledge, expertise, it removes that decision fatigue of having to find a new one every month, even if it's just that automated donation is I already know I'm doing it. I don't have to put that legwork when there's so many other decisions we have to do. Before I take us way too off topic, I do want to talk about one big piece of the puzzle when it comes to working in the nonprofit space, and it certainly was in my work, was corporate sponsors and how do we engage with the for-profit communities and how do we sustain mission and vision with them as a partner. So I'd love to hear what has worked in the virtual space that we're in when you're partnering with corporate sponsors.
Yeah, I'll start off again. But I think what's interesting for us was, again, we really reset everything. So some of our relationships were like based in a city, and now they're all national. But one of the things that we started doing, because also a lot of the corporations were also really struggling when the pandemic hit. So a lot of their budgets were frozen. They couldn't, make some of the donations they had planned on. And so we started a lot of engagements with them, like virtual engagements. And this probably started somewhere around the fall of 2020, where they wanted to do good. They've kind of reset some public mission statements about their interest of engaging in inclusion, and needed to start working on that, but didn't have the budgets that they might have had about that. So we started doing more, virtual volunteer events. So whether for that, some of that meant for us is we'd have content experts from a corporate partner who would come and teach a class. Would do some mentoring. We did some career readiness. We'd have HR departments from the ERG at different companies come and talk about what's it like to work here, what's our interview process like, and we do that on a regular basis. We've done some bigger events. We've had some events where we've done, 20 volunteers with 20 of our members, and we've done an interaction. We're working on one right now with a company on a LinkedIn boot camp, sort of like get your LinkedIn profile up and running with an HR or a marketing rep. So some really cool ways to kind of, again, build the connection with them, but also helping our mission in our community. And then now we are starting to see a lot of those becoming donors and coming back to us. And we've built those relationships, and now they have their budgets back and they're ready to make some of those gifts. So a little slower than what I would have liked. But again, it was similar to Miri. We had a very similar situation when March 2020 hit. We only had recurring donors. That's all we had showing back up. And we've had since we made this big shift to stay virtual, we've had to reset all those conversations and rebuild it. But we've had some real fun with it. And actually, we've been a real opportunity to kind of, our goal when the pandemic hit, we said yes, pretty much to anything we thought that was doable within our mission bucket. And then kind of we're like, I don't know, we'll try it. And that was sort of our mission when a conversation with companies had come to us, be like, I don't know, I'll put it out there if our members sign up, and then let's do it. As long as I don't want to let you down by telling you I'm going to have 20 members. If they're not interested in your topic, they just won't come. And are you okay with that? Okay, I am. Okay, let's try it. So we had a lot of those kind of awkward relationships. I didn't want to get into no one's here. But yeah, so it's been fun. I mean, I think, that has really served us well to kind of be the guinea pig and try things and see what would work. And, we were in an interesting situation of our model that allowed us just to experiment a little bit, but it's been fun. And now we know what works and kind of what doesn't work, unfortunately. and we have a bunch of those really great opportunities in the hopper for next year.
That last year, spring was just so tough, and finding ways to, work with corporate partners and connect with the community was important. So we had ad boards, or we even had we continued our 5Ks, but virtually. So they could still clock their miles and still participate, and they could track everything, but from their own neighborhoods, their own communities, but still participate and have still be connected through, the Facebook groups. And so, yeah, we had to become, we had to come up with some really creative ways, and our corporate partners did partner with us to help with those opportunities. Also with those Ask the Experts sessions as well. We were able to do one with the Johnson & Johnson Neutrogena, and we were able to have, some well-known, I think it was I was going to think of which Netflix show, but she's become pretty popular. It was one of those cute rom-coms, but she was able to lead an Ask the Expert session where she was asking the expert, the oncologist, questions that a patient would want to know about. And then, of course, in the chat, the patients were participating actively. So it was just a great opportunity for everyone to continue to connect and have a fun shared space too.
Wow. I still have like thousands of questions, but I would be a bad moderator if I didn't encourage folks to join in the conversation. So please, if things are hitting your aha moments in the audience, drop some questions, ask. Like, there's a wealth of knowledge at this virtual table, and I want to make sure everyone has a moment to drop those in there. So one of my last questions is probably one of the heftiest ones, and as we're in kind of, I don't want to even call it a flex, because being in New York City, we're not sure if we're going to stay open, what we're going to do. The buzzword of I want to say like the past 3 months has been hybrid, right? And like as we're looking at 2022, could you throw a buzzword out there that you want your community to live and breathe by? Is it that you're going to move into hybrid? Are you going to stay virtual? Like, what's on the radar for 2022 and your nonprofit community? And we can just do round robin here if anyone wants to kick it off.
Definitely hybrid. You know, you're seeing that a lot. We have an upcoming advocacy days, which is a couple of events that used to be held here on the Hill over a span of 3 days. And we saw so much more support and more of our advocates able to join us. So now, you know, with everyone being more ready, I don't know with this new variant, but ready to participate again in in-person events, we're going to be prepared to do a hybrid type of setup for these. So making sure that we have a great platform like Bevy available to us, and then also the space, the familiar space we were familiar with in person too. But making sure that works well and no one's left out because it can be a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
2022 for us is about scale, supporting more families without lowering the quality of service. And it's kind of this question of, do we want to go far or do we want to go deep? And you know, for us, we're in this place where our families have, I mean, unlimited number of challenges that they're facing when they get here. Our programming is highly limited. You know, we do some very specific things. There is certainly no future where Miraculous is able to solve all of the problems for all of the individual people and families who are in our program, although we would want to. I wish I could just snap my fingers and make things easy for these families. But the reality is it's not. And our you know, we're offering 12 months of support. And so the challenges that we are exploring with families in their first month in the program are very different than the ones that we're talking about 6 months later or 3 months after that. And so being really conscientious about what are the specific points of human connection that every single family in our program are going to get. Because that is actually the most important value that we are bringing to these families' doors, you know, physical door or, you know, friendship door. It's highly isolating to migrate to a new country. It requires a lot of bravery, and also it's like jumping into the unknown without a life jacket. So for us, you know, we're thinking about scale, but, you know, through this lens of not how do we scale to the most number of people possibly touched by our program, but how do we scale this kind of core of what we've been able to offer families over the last 5 years? How do we offer that to, you know, 500 families next year, and 750 families in 2023, and 1,000 families in 2024? We know that the demand and the need for community-based programming for refugees is not going away. If anything, it's going to increase. And so, you know, here's an example. We send a welcome kit to every family in our program. That kit is going to have things like toiletries, cleaning supplies, face masks, school supplies, clothing for the kids, all kinds of things that families are going to often need when they are starting out in their new home. Those supplies are mostly donated to us by companies. You know, you asked earlier about corporate partnerships. So we have these incredible companies like Dr. Bronner's is donating soap and hand sanitizer that it's like the world's best smelling hand sanitizer, I got to tell you. And the Purple Bedding Company, they give us pillows and sheets. And And so we want to make sure we're getting these important things to families, but also we want to make sure that when they open that box and it's full of pillows, that they know that it's not just one pillow company that's like, oh, here, take our pillows. We want them to open that package and say, oh my God, look how many people care about my comfort. Because that is the intervention part of what we do. It's not about a thing. It's about a feeling. It's about counteracting a lot of feelings and a lot of what can be really scary memories. And I don't have any professional training in trauma or anything like that. I just know from my own life and from what my friends have been brave enough to talk to me about. I know that when you are living your life walking around with an incredible sense of grief and loss and loneliness and isolation, and maybe you even feel invisible, the antidote, the counteracting of that is as many good memories as you can possibly collect. And points of human connection are where memories happen. When you open a box and you see a handwritten letter, I'll just pull one off the top of the stack right here, like this. Like, we have hundreds of these that are sent to us every week by people all over the country. This costs nothing. This is not a program of Mary's List. This is just, we made a PDF and we said, hey, if you ever want to write a welcome letter to a family, send it to us. We'll give it to them. Well, now we have thousands of handwritten welcome letters. And, when you open the box of pillows and you get this, it says, welcome to the United States. We are so glad you've arrived. We know that this has been a long journey for your family. It takes a lot of courage to make a big move like that. We welcome you with open arms and a full heart. So like this, on top of a box of important things that we know a family needs because they've expressed that need to us, this is the kind of scale that I'm talking about. It's community-based, human connection-based support and listening and responding. So that's what you're going to see from Mary's List in 2022 and beyond.
Katie, take us home. Take us home. I'm like near tears.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's amazing.
So inspirational.
Yeah, write those today. So big picture for us, we're staying virtual. Like, we're not going back. This is our normal. We're not waiting for anything else. This is what we're gonna do. But we're gonna get real good at it, and our focus is really on accessibility. So it's great that now we offer a class at 7 p.m. East Coast time, 3 p.m. West Coast, 4 p.m. West Coast time on a Tuesday. We also now want to add async. We want to add additional learning opportunities. We're adding some mentorship opportunities, independent study, more hackathon opportunities. We want to not just be teaching, but also pushing our community members to build their confidence by doing and activating. So, we're really happy about that. We love it. We're going to stay in this space. People keep asking us, you're going to come back and offer me a class in Georgia. I'm like, I don't want to just serve, those folks. We can serve everybody. But we are being very thoughtful about accessibility. We have a partnership. We're working on a place to donate computers. We're going to work on some Wi-Fi access. We're going to continue to kind of push ourselves to think through that way. But we're hugging the virtual world, and we're going to get really, really good at teaching virtually and including and virtual accessibility.
All right, I'm gonna try and put a tagline on this conversation. I'm not a marketer, so please feel free to give me some pushback in the comments. But if I had to summarize today's conversation before we move into networking, it is that community is a people business, like, to point blank. And it doesn't work unless we do that intentionally, with empathy and with authenticity. So I think, I'm going to need a couple of days to soak in all the nuggets, and I'm probably going to have to rewatch this session a couple times, and I hope that resonates with people too.